Yo, what's up? So today is going to be nutrition label. So we're going to go through the whole thing piece by piece, kind of walk you through it, what to look for, um, the highlights really, and then give you some more tips and stuff towards the end. But first thing I want you to realize is that not all nutrition labels are incredibly accurate, right? So we just use these as kind of a guide, not a be all end all, to make all of our decisions based on, right? So whole foods, less processed things are always going to be primary, but these can kind of give you a good gauge on things as you're shopping for foods and as you're getting things started. So let's get into it. The first thing you're going to see here at the top, you have your servings, how many servings are in the container that you have, right? Then you have how much that serving size is. So for this one, it's 1 bar, but that could be in ounces, that could be in cups, that could be in grams, it could be in a lot of different measurements, right? And then we're going to go into calories per serving. So that's how many calories are in one serving of this food. So for this one, it would be 1 bar is 260 calories. So one thing I want to mention here is a lot of foods can kind of mislead you here. So they could say, you could see this number here and it could be like 100, right? But then you go back up and you look at the serving size and it's like, it's like 2 chips or one cracker, whatever. But basically, that's just a way for them to get you to buy their product because it looks like it's really low calorie, which it is if you eat what their serving size is, but most of the time we're probably going to eat more than that. So if you want to kind of calculate up how many servings or how many calories are in the whole entire container, you can just take that number here and multiply it by how many servings are in that container. Right, so let's move into kind of the bulk of it. The main things that you really want to focus on here are fat, carb, and protein, right? See how they're kind of bolded and then they have things underneath them. So we're going to go through that as well. So we'll start with fat, right? Well, before I get into that, so fat, carb, and protein all have different amounts of calories per gram of them, right? So fat is going to have the most. They have 9 calories per gram in 1 gram of fat. And it's going to be 4 calories per gram with carbohydrate and protein, right? So that's just something you want to be mindful of. That doesn't mean that fat is a bad thing. Fat is actually a very good thing, but just kind of keep that in mind. So let's go underneath that. So we've got saturated fat, trans fat, polyunsaturated fat, and monounsaturated fat. So you can kind of lump these two here at the end together as just unsaturated fat. Trans fat is not really in a lot of foods anymore. They've outlawed that, so they're starting to remove a lot of those trans fats out of foods. So really all you have to worry about are saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Unsaturated fats are going to be the ones that are good for you, the ones you want to get more of, right? So there's a few things on here that you want to really look for whenever you're picking foods, and that's one of them. So unsaturated fat, you want to keep that pretty high. Sometimes that's not always going to be on a nutrition label. They don't always have to put that on there, but you can always calculate it yourself. So let's say that this bottom part wasn't on there, and we know that there's 7 grams of total fat in this bar, and there's 1 gram of saturated fat. That would leave 6 grams of fat left for the poly and the mono unsaturated or just unsaturated fat. So if you ever don't see it on there, that's how you can kind of calculate that. Cholesterol and sodium we're not going to worry about too much right now. Carbohydrate, so that's if you're thinking about like pasta, bread, grains, things like that. That's kind of what we're looking at here. And underneath that we have fiber, total sugars, and then added sugars, right? So fiber is what's going to really help your digestive system, help you feel full longer. This is really the big one that we want to take away from this section is we want to get foods that have a lot of fiber in them, right? A lot of fiber. Don't really worry too much about insoluble fiber right now, but dietary fiber, that's what we want to have a good bit of in our diet. And also total sugars is not necessarily a bad thing. It's the added sugars is what we really want to kind of be mindful of and trying to keep that number low, right? And then we'll move on to protein. So protein, pretty straightforward. We got 11 grams of it in this one, and it's gonna, kind of be at the end, but that's probably one of the most important things that you really want to try to get in most of the foods you buy. Not everything is going to be that way, but protein is very good for you, and It's going to help you feel full longer. It's going to help you build strong muscles. So we really want to look for foods that are high in protein, and then high in fiber, and high in unsaturated fat, right? And then kind of keep a limit on our added sugars and our saturated fats. Okay, so that's kind of the bulk of the numbers part, right? Just to go a little more detail, these percentage numbers here, these are the percent daily value, and that's kind of just like a general number. So it's, based on the research that they've done, those, what percent of that food is in this food for the day, right? So 10% of your daily value of the total amount of sodium you should get in a day is in one serving of this food, right? So if you ate 10 of these, then you're going to be topped out at your 100%, right? So don't worry too much about that stuff right now, but just so you have a little bit of a background. And then below that, we have all of our nutrients that are in there. So the more of these you see, typically, the better the food's going to be. But again, nothing to be super concerned about right now. As long as you're trying to get whole foods, less processed things, you're going to get a lot more of these nutrients in them. All right. And then lastly, we're going to go into the ingredients, right? So this is going to be on any nutrition label that you look at somewhere on the packaging. But the way that they order this is the first ingredient, the thing that's listed first, is going to have the most total weight in the food, right? So if you'll notice with this one, it's organic brown rice syrup, right? So that's just kind of a fancy term for sugar, right? And it's the number one most weighted food in this particular food. I don't know if anyone has been able to guess so far, but this is a Cliff Bar, right? So a lot of people think of Cliff Bars as healthy foods, but I don't really, mostly because you got 18 grams of added sugar, and the first ingredient on the list is essentially another type of sugar, right? So whenever you're looking at ingredients, it's almost better to just kind of go straight for the ingredients and look at those. But we have, you're kind of looking for things that are things that right? So shorter ingredients list is typically better. Things that like, so for oatmeal, if there's, basically just oats, right? You don't want a bunch of other crap in there. You want to keep it pretty natural, not very processed, and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of that. Let's kind of go into some final thoughts here on this one. So a couple things to consider for sure. Remember that these food labels are not 100% accurate by any means. The way that they measure them is not incredibly precise. Sometimes they have third-party people do it. Sometimes they do it in-house. And it's not very well regulated. But it is important to, have these numbers, especially as you're getting started, to kind of learn the different types of foods that have the different types of carbs, fats, protein in them. And it also makes shopping a little bit easier whenever you can look at this and be able to make decisions on it. We'll get into it in another module, but you can't really trust anything that's on the front of packaging. So you really this is the only thing that's really regulated strongly on a food label, or on a food at all, that tells you what's in there. So don't worry about the front, flip it around, look at the back. I really wish that they would just have all the foods turned around in the store so you can look at what's really important and what's not telling you any lies. Second, if you ever go out to eat, sometimes you can see what the food label, you can get the food label information from people. Those are even less accurate, right? Because a lot of times those can be off, and whether that's for the benefit of the company or the restaurant you're at, or it's just, honest mistake. It happens, and it happens up to being incorrect by up to 18%. So, and that can be, everywhere, or each cook may cook things differently. They may put different things in there. The serving sizes that they're giving you are not always very precise based on what they should be giving you. So that's why I'm a kind of a big proponent of cooking as much as you can at home, and really just trying to focus on the more natural foods. So, and then finally, we'll go into some action steps that you can take just to kind of help with this, right? So first one's going to be slow down. When you go to the store, take your time if you can. They pry on people being in a rush and looking at the front of packaging and, kind of making impulse decisions. So if you can, at least as you're getting started, try to take some time in the grocery store, look at different nutrition labels, compare things, and just kind of see how things go from there. So, number 2, keep it real, right? So, when you can, whole foods, natural foods, those are going to be much more accurate than processed foods when it comes to the nutrition label. Think like, meats and vegetables. Like vegetables don't even have nutrition labels on them sometimes because they're just that one ingredient, right? So you want to err towards whole foods to make sure that you're not getting swindled or getting confused from what it's telling you on here. Number 3, prioritize the ingredients over the calories, right? So if you find something that has a ton of different ingredients in it, but it's like 100 calories, or something really low in calories, then maybe want to choose a different option there, just because it has so many ingredients, especially if they're ones that you have never heard before, or you don't know what they are. Number 4 is going to be comparison shop. So this one is going to be looking at different brands of the same food and just kind of making the smart decision of choosing one that's maybe higher in protein or higher in fiber or higher in unsaturated fat or less added sugar, just making smart decisions in that way. And then the last one I'm going to say is don't believe the front of packaging. I'm going to do a module on this in the future that you all can check out, but don't pay attention to what the front of the food label says. So if you have any questions, let me know, but I'll catch y'all next time.